What's going on, guys? It's Red Bull Tinker, and welcome back to Axis and Allies 1951 Global 40 edition, turn 5. Some interesting points happened this turn, so let's get into it. All right, so we start with the Soviet Union. They had 66 to spend. They paid off the damage to all of their facilities here in Germany, Slovakia, and they initially did so in Amur as well. They bought, let's see here, they bought 3 infantry, or they bought 6 infantry, 2 destroyers, and 3 tanks. Combat. Alright, starting off. So they had 2 bombers based, they had 2 Tu-4s based in Greece. So one went to Sea Zone 95 and ended up killing a British destroyer and 2 NATO transports. The destroyer was not able to hit the bomber, and the other bomber bombed the minor industrial complex in southern Italy, and the AAA missed, and the bomber hit for 4 damage. Next, so as you can see up here in northern Italy, the Soviets amassed a massive force from their forces in southern Germany, the 3 tanks from Romania, the tank here in Yugoslavia, and they attacked into southern Italy. Now, it was a pretty nasty fight. So the NATO did have a AAA gun. It did kill 1 fighter before combat began. Total casualties for NATO, it was the AAA gun, 10 infantry, 4 artillery, and 2 tanks. The Soviets lost 2 infantry, 3 mech infantry, 1 artillery, and 1 Katyusha self-propelled artillery. So that was after 2 rounds. And then at the end of the second round, the U.S. had a tactical bomber and a B-47 bomber. The U.S. Elected to try and retreat those back to Paris. The tactical, unfortunately, was lost in the retreat, while the B-47 made it. Over in the Pacific, the Soviet-backed Indian forces attacked into Burma, which put another penalty on the Soviet Union. They once again are at minus. They can only buy 1 diplomacy dice for 2 turns, and if they attack any more neutrals, they will defend at a 3 or less. And then finally, the Tu-4 in Amur flew out here to Sea Zone 15 and caught a U.S. transport off guard and sunk it along with 1 infantry and 2 tanks. So a heavy blow to the U.S. Pacific forces in much need of reinforcements. Non-combat, the Soviets... That didn't sound good. The Soviets just continue to keep moving stuff. They have decided, because of what is here, they've decided to abandon Israel and have retreated back into Iraq. And just continue to try and get stuff into West Germany. And just trying to keep the line steady before they can make their try and rebuild before they can make their next assault. And then at the end of the turn, the Soviets collected 90 IPC. Well, they collected 90 IPC altogether. They collected 82, and then they got 82 IPC plus 8 for bonuses. NATO. Alright, NATO had 33 IPC to spend. They spent it all on 11 infantry. They did not conduct any combat. They didn't really do any moves, except once again forgetting to move this guy and get him offloaded in Normandy. At the end of the turn, NATO collect 31 IPC with no bonuses. China had 38 IPC to spend. Whoops. I'll quickly fix that. Okay, China had 38 IPC to spend. They bought 6 infantry, an artillery, a mech, and 2 tanks. Combat. Alright, first, the Chinese attempted an amphibious landing here in Malaya with 2 infantry, 2 tanks, and 2 fighters. After 2 rounds of combat, they were able to destroy 2 British infantry and an artillery, but unfortunately lost 2 infantry. Oh no, this was only 1 round. They lost, and then the Chinese lost 2 infantry, the 2 tanks, and they lost a fighter, and the fighter retreated back to French Indochina. Next, a small contingent of the Chinese army went from Siam and French Indochina into the Shan state. They killed the defending British infantry, but the Chinese lost a mechanized infantry in the battle. Non-combats, they didn't really have a lot. They're still kind of keeping static, other than moving this Katusha down from the interior of China. And so at the end of the turn, China collected 38 IPC plus 3 for bonuses. However, again, they were land convoy rated up here in Shangtung for 1 IPC, so they did get a -1, so they collected 40 this turn. And what the heck? Oh, that's what happened. I hit something and everything got out of whack. Alright, Britain. Alright, so Britain had 37 to spend. They tried to unlock the heavy transport technology and failed. They bought 1 airborne, 5 infantry, and 1 self-propelled artillery in London. And then they bought 3 infantry that they posted in Malaya. Britain did one thing of combat. They took the destroyer and the battleship up here. Oh, crap. 1 second. I screwed up again for NATO. I did not do the... So there was a Russian sub up here that I forgot to roll for to see if the Russian sub kills the or gets that NATO Norway's IPC. Okay, and we rolled 2 dice and there was a 2, so NATO actually loses 2 IPC from Norway, so NATO actually has 31 IPC for next turn. So let me just wait, no, they collected 31 -2, so they actually have 29. So I'm going to have to fix that in a little bit. So I will... Where did I... Yep. Alright, I changed that in my notes. Okay, so Britain attacked the Soviet sub that was up here. They killed it with no damage to themselves. And then after that, non-combats, they just continued to... push units into Holland, Belgium. They moved their forces from South Africa to join the U.S.-backed Egyptian forces. And they didn't really do anything in the Pacific. They kind of forgot about them and forgot to move them at least up to the Philippines or back over here for Sado. Alright, so then at the end of the turn, the British collected 27 IPC. However, they were convoy rated here off of Malaya for 3 IPC. So they only collected 24 this turn. Sado. Whoops. Good lord. Okay, Sado had 37 IPC to spend. They tried to unlock EM2 assault rifles and failed. They bought 2 airborne and an air transport in Sydney, while also buying, where was it? Buying 1 infantry, 1 tank, and 1 transport for the Philippines. Combat. The Sato did one thing of combat. They attempted to liberate Okinawa for the Americans against a lone Chinese infantry. Unfortunately, the landing was a complete disaster, and both Sato units were destroyed along with the Chinese unit. However, spoiler, it allowed for the American Marines to land on Okinawa and resecure it for themselves. On the non-combat, basically, NATO used this air transport to transport an infantry and artillery over to the Philippines. And so then at the end of the turn, Sato collected 28 IPC, plus 5 for bonuses. They also saved 2, so they rounded up the turn with 35 IPC. Alright, over to the United States. Alright, the United States had 79 to spend. They bought a miner, and they put that in Egypt. They tried to unlock the long-range aircraft technology. That didn't work. Then they bought 2 infantry, 2 self-propelled guns, and 2 tanks, and 2 transports in the eastern United States. They placed a destroyer off the west coast of the United States, and then in Japan, they deployed 2 Marines and 2 self-propelled artillery. Now, obviously, the deployments are happening at the end of the turn. I'm just going through saying where they go right now. Combat. The U.S. had 2 things of combat. Like I said, they took their 1 Marine unit off of Japan and did a landing in Okinawa. And then their second was they took their B-29, the B-47, this jet, and a fighter, and they went and did some strategic bombing up in Amur against the Russians. The Russians did scramble their 2 jets up there for the air battle. Unfortunately for the Russians, they lost both their jets, but the U.S. lost one of their fighters. The Russian AAA gunners could not hit their targets, and the factory was damaged for 3, and the naval base was max damaged at 6. Non-combats. Since we're here in the Pacific, the U.S. took this force from the western United States and brought it down to Midway because they are afraid of that Soviet sub coming in and getting them, or even getting in range of that Tu-4 again. The U.S. can't afford to lose any more reinforcements coming across. And that sub up there is also why they dropped the destroyer. Got to make sure they can protect the IPC for the western United States. Also in the non-combat, obviously they brought their planes back to Japan. This jet landed on the carrier. The forces in Egypt did not move. And then they just continued to shuffle troops to Holland, Belgium, where the U.S. has decided to form its own army group. They have formed the U.S. First Army, which I will, one second, come down here to show the card. Whoops. I'll just move that. Right. Okay, so we have the U.S. First Army. Since I have like division markers and some stuff, I'm having some fun with this one. So, currently in the order of battle for the U.S. First Army, we have the full 29th Infantry Division with its artillery. We have 2 regiments of the 4th Infantry Division and its artillery. We have the 4 regiments of the 2nd Armored Division and its artillery, as well as the beginnings of the 6th Armored Division along with its artillery support. They moved 2 regiments of the 101st Airborne to London. They brought their bombers back to London, and then decided to leave a tactical in Paris, and continued to leave the U.S. 82nd Airborne to protect Paris as well. They also took one of their AAA guns that was defending Paris and moved it up to Holland, Belgium as well. Alright, so then at the end of the turn, the U.S. collected 63 IPC. They had 17 for bonuses, which would have been 80, but the Soviet sub got lucky and was able to knock off the 2 IPC for Alaska. So at the end of the turn, the U.S. collected 78. Alright, well that is it for turn 5. Real quick, still no movement on the victory cities for the communists, but it looks like it'll probably go up by 1 next turn. So, like I said, that is going to be it for turn 5, and we will see you guys next time for turn 6. So until then, guys, as always, take care.